A radical revolution of our worldview, wrote Dr. Suzuki, and who would deny that with the increasing complexities of globalization and our stubborn clinging to old ways, old habits, old customs, and old beliefs, that's precisely what humankind cries out for today. Welcome to the Omphalos Cafe, and let me just give you fair warning from the very outset. I am proposing nothing less than a radical revolution of our worldview with these revised 4 noble truths. Now I say revised because for upwards of 2,500 years we've had the Buddha's 4 noble truths, which were in a nutshell: 1. All life is suffering. 2. Suffering has its origin in our conception of self. 3. Would you end suffering? Extinguish self. And 4. The Noble Eightfold Path as the way towards the extinguishing of the self. Solid teachings, no question. That being said, you are going to hear a line that sounds ridiculous in your ears, especially hearing it here at the Omphalos Cafe. I mean, on YouTube. Who's this guy really think he is? However, Oswald Spengler, James Joyce, and Joseph Campbell would understand what I mean, and though they're all dead now, that's enough for me. The truth is, the Buddha's outlook, unlike our greatest spirits today, was limited. That is, his horizon was a closed one, encompassing his own aging Vedic world, but not really seeing beyond it. His world was at an advanced stage of civilization, that is, approaching senility, hence all that suffering business, as our Western one is today, hence too our fascination with Buddhism. However, he could not know, as we can today, that other civilizations underwent the very same process, and that this collective or communal aging is a natural one, and part of life, in fact. That kind of broader perspective puts us potentially on the cusp of something radically new, if we have the courage to face it, that is. So, from a uniquely Western perspective, I'm offering up my radically revised, indeed revolutionary new Omphalos Cafe's 4 noble truths. Not that I believe anything is going to change during my lifetime, mind you. Things just don't happen that fast in these matters. However, I feel it incumbent upon myself, feel a responsibility, you might say, to plant these seeds, to keep the dream alive, so to speak. Now, before we get to them, it's fair to ask, a radical revolution of our worldview here at the Omphalos Cafe and here on YouTube? That sounds like a bit of a stretch, doesn't it? And I'd answer, absolutely. Don't get me wrong, I fully understand how crazy this stuff must sound. Any sane person should be asking, why me? Why here at the Omphalos Cafe, and why now? And the best answer to that question is that the time is right. That's why. First of all, this stuff I speak of here at the cafe is a unique flower of our aging Western civilization. No other civilization before us had the range and depth of knowledge, scientific breadth of learning, and comprehension of the vast scale of time involved. So it is only in the full maturity of our Western outlook that giants of the human spirit, as I like to refer to them, men such as Oswald Spengler, James Joyce, and Joseph Campbell, have attained to what might be called a poetically holistic view of all life. So there's that. However, time and the maturation of our Western civilization is crucial to what goes on here for another reason. As recently as 100 years ago, 50 or 60 perhaps, this sort of stuff simply couldn't be communicated without the proverbial shite hitting the fan. Nietzsche, Spengler, and Joyce all strove mightily against forces that sought to silence and bury the message they struggled to convey. Campbell managed to publish his monumental Masks of God, but who reads it today? Who teaches it? And why has it been largely ignored? Perhaps, as Campbell put it succinctly in his creative mythology, in the history of our still youthful species, a profound respect for inherited forms has generally suppressed innovation. I love that. Still youthful species. Anyway, finally, there's another way in which the time is right for these 4 revised noble truths, and that is, who today has the time to read and, more importantly, reflect, digest, and incorporate the wonders contained in Spengler, Joyce, and Campbell, not to mention dozens of others? Because the reality is we are a rushed bunch, jostled and hurried about intellectually. Who today can find the time, and just as importantly, the space in which to mull these things over? Well, not to toot my own horn, because it's probably due more to good old-fashioned stubborn knuckle-headedness, but that's precisely what I've been up to for the better part of 3 decades. Good old-fashioned stubborn knuckle-headedness. Anyway, there you have it. Why the time is right. So, without further ado, here are the Omphalos Cafe's revised 4 Noble Truths. At number 1 is something I've used again and again in these videos and in my blog at omphaloscafe.com. One is, life is all there is. That is, everything we see around us, everything that isn't inert matter, mind you, such as a stone, is alive or an expression of life, an unfolding or outflow from it. Every idea, every thought, every artwork, every act, good or bad, filled with grace or horrible inhuman violence, is an expression of life. Examine a book or a shell on the beach, and they are practically the same. Evidence that life passed through and altered matter in some way. The book or shell is nothing if we cannot recognize and perhaps sympathize with the current of life that passed by or through it and left it behind. So that's number 1. A seemingly simple and yet all-encompassing life is all there is. Noble truth number 2 is a relatively simple definition of life. It goes, life is nothing more or less than the ever-ongoing flow from one generation to the next, what I've sometimes referred to as the great passing through. And that's all. Pretty self-explanatory. Observe any living being imaginable, any plant, animal, or microorganism, and that includes any human being, and they are all in the process of flowing through from one generation to the next. Period. Noble truth number 3 expands on that. Each species accomplishes this passing through from one generation to the next in their own specific and highly unique fashion. And in fact, the manner in which a species accomplishes their own unique passing through defines that species and sets it apart from every other living species. Anyway, moving on, finally, noble truth number 4, specific to us humans. 4. Humans, the most adaptable, flexible, and resourceful of species, accomplishes our passing through in phenomenally diverse, dynamic, and ever-evolving communities. And that's it. We live in groups, ranging from indigenous clans or tribes 50 or 100 members strong, to huge unwieldy civilizations numbering in the millions or even billions. And just because sometime between 50 and 150,000 years ago, though the actual number doesn't matter, in the process of evolving and refining our means of flowing through, humankind developed the ability to hold on to a thought in our brains, infinitely complicating the game. The essential reality of our flowing through, our oneness with the flow of life, remains unchanged. So folks, there you have it, my radically revised 4 noble truths intended to take us into the unseen future. However, don't ever say the Omphalos Cafe doesn't deliver the goods or shortchanges you on your price of admission. Since you've made it this far, I'm offering up a bonus 5th noble truth, making, if my math is correct, these truths 25% bigger and vaster than those they replaced. So, noble truth number 5 is, the unseen but ever felt hub around which the infinitely variable human groups, ranging from tiny tribe or clan to mammoth civilizations, revolve, is frequently referred to, labeled, or defined as the Godhead, Gods, or God. And I'll just leave it at that, folks. So simple sounding and yet so all-encompassing. The flow of life through each and every one of us, as well as each and every living being on planet Earth, and doubtless throughout the galaxy. Life really is all there is. Thanks for watching the Omphalos Cafe. We'll see you next time.